Hey, for Senator Wiener's here. Yeah, you can't miss him. He's very tall. And then Michelle. Hi, is David here? Yeah, parking is kind of
Hey, what's up, kid?
Good to see you.
Good to see you, man. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, this is great.
I know. Thank you. Thank you.
I just need to wear my signature report shirt.
Some sort of thing.
Be able to wire.
Yeah. Hi! Oh, good to see you.
Hey, how you been? Freaking Mother Gravity has pulled me back to Earth, as she does.
With the weight of stress
I know, exactly.
and campaigning.
Yeah, thank you for
Potter, Lily Ho. I'm sorry, I don't have any business cards.
A lot of people that
Excuse me.
What's he saying? I know. I know.
Oh, he's over here.
It is pretty disingenuous for them to capture an event with them. Alright, we need to start walking. Okay, thank you. Okay, so what I'm going to do is you should assume your position, and I'll tell you exactly when the mayor is here, and then you can start the program.
He should be here before 11, and I'm like, great, thank you. That's exactly my...
Worst case scenario, we'll walk David right here on your side, okay?
Yeah, I told him to like just pull up and pull up because there's that spot right there.
Okay. I will just brief like right away. If there's any change, I'll just be right here and I'll just let you know. Okay. So all you can do is focus on emceeing. And you're speaking.
And I can switch these around.
You can switch these around, but yeah. But as soon as the mayor's here, we're gonna start the program so that we can be on time. Okay. Let's start bringing people over to this side though. Where's the megaphone? Where's Lily? Okay, where's Lily Hill?
Lucky Torres. Oh, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Yes. Thank you for being here today. About to start. Okay.
Where is Lily? Oh, there she is.
Yeah. I mean, good shots of everything. Want a picture?
Out in the back.
You mean the electeds?
No, not the election. The election's going to be back here.
Why don't you use the loudspeaker?
You get told Lily about it.
Yeah, we're supposed to Lily, you're crowd control, right?
Good all? You gotta go to this side of the banner.
I'm going to get you really quick.
Hi, everybody. We're going to get started in a second.
Hi, we're about to start the Asian Justice March here in San Francisco. It's the center of a national event coordinated by Charles Young, who's the Asian American leader. And so we're stopping in 6 cities and we're commemorating the 1-year march of Vicha Ratanapakdee, tragically died.
Martin Luther King
We're about to get started. If everyone can move to their private seats, that would be great. Honey?
Yeah.
Lori lost control.
I'll take it.
I don't see it as a race issue in the sense that it's happening to Asians, but it could be anywhere. It could be on your friends.
She's showing her the dog. Well, glad to be American and glad you're at the top.
Thank you so much. Where are you?
San Francisco Public Television.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Everybody, we are going to get started in a second. If everybody could move to behind the camera. Very good.
Oh, yeah, you're familiar. Yeah, it's just
Testing. Does this work? Testing. Hi everyone, we're going to get started in a few minutes, but in the meantime, we're going to go straight, after the speaking program, we are going to go straight into the Asian Justice March. We would like to invite all attendees to pick a poster that inspires you. Pick a poster that speaks to your heart and carry this during the march. My name is Natasha Kwan. I'm honored to be the MC today. I'm a local attorney and I'm also an Asian American activist. So please grab a poster. We're going to start our speaking program in a few minutes, and then after the speaking program we will go directly into the Asian Justice March. Thank you. Posters are over here.
We're going to take a picture with the senator.
Ready, and let's start.
Okay, that's Mayor. Okay, I
You
can
ready?
start?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's get the electeds all lined up here, please.
Get all
Everyone
lined
who's
up
speaking.
right here.
Everyone who's
Sorry.
speaking. Yes,
Sign over
supervisor.
here.
Hello, great to see you. So we need David.
Come on over.
And
I'll have you
we
get
need
the
Montana.
shot as well.
Yep, okay.
Supervisor. Joaquin, do you want to come on over and
Very
help me
tight.
back here? Okay, go ahead and start. Go ahead.
Today marks 1 year. 1 year since Vicha Ratanapakdee tragically died from his injuries after being violently pushed on his morning walking here in Anza Vista. We gather here today to remember Grandpa Vicha and to honor him as a symbol in the movement to stop Asian hate. We gather here also to remember the countless other Asian victims throughout the country who have been senselessly beaten, killed, stabbed. Today's Asian Justice March in San Francisco is the center of a national event. There are parallel rallies happening right this minute in New York City, Los Angeles, Chicago, Atlanta, and Philadelphia. It was a massive national coordinated effort led by San Francisco's own Asian American leader, Charles Jung. Today's rally is about all of you, the amazing community gathered here today to unite and empower the community in a time of crisis. I ask each of you, how did you feel when you heard that an Asian American elderly man was pushed and killed while on his morning walk here in San Francisco? How did you feel when you heard that 6 Asian American women were gunned down and killed in an Atlanta spa? And how did you feel in May of 2021 when you heard that 2 elderly Asian American women were stabbed with a knife while on Mid-Market at 4th and Market in May of 2021? To see this again and again has been traumatizing for the Asian community, to see people who look like us treated this way. It's inhumane. We must not stand for it. We don't deserve it. These are our friends, our family, fellow immigrants. I ask each of you, let's please turn our fear and our anger into something meaningful. Let's rise above it. To our allies gathered here today, please help us turn thoughts and prayers into change and justice. Whether it be increased funding for Asian American nonprofits providing resources to victims, legislative change, education reform to include the history of Asian American struggle, let's keep demanding progress. We deserve better. Please join the Asian American community in the movement to keep us safe for our elders, for our children, and future generations. Now it is my honor to present the 45th mayor of the city and county of San Francisco and a native San Franciscan, Mayor London Breed. She has prioritized victims' rights and resources, and she has recently appointed a policy advisor for victims' rights with over 30 years of experience to help ensure that victims are heard and provided resources and supported. Please join me in welcoming Mayor London Breed.
Thank you all so much for coming here today. I am so grateful to know Vicha's daughter Amy and his son-in-law Eric, but I wish we didn't meet under these circumstances. They are wonderful people. Amy's dad came to this country to help them raise their children. And I know many of us, with our cherished relationships with our mothers, our fathers, our grandmothers, our grandfathers, I know when we saw that video, it was heartbreaking. It still is heartbreaking. I still feel a lot of the pain and the hurt. And sadly, that never goes away. But it sure does give folks comfort when so many people come together to express support, to help to uplift this family, this community, the people in our API community who have been unfairly attacked in this city and in this country because of divisiveness and hate, which we have made clear time and time again as we come together that we will not tolerate it. We will never give in to it. We will never support it. We will stand together. We will stand together against it. This year, marking the 1-year anniversary of Papa Vicha's death, has signified a movement all over the country. Today, we come together knowing that there have been other victims, sadly, in this city and in this country. We come together to remember them, to make sure that they are not forgotten, to make sure people understand how it impacts families and communities, the hurt and the pain, the suffering. And I am reminded of Dr. King at a time like this. Dr. King, who his whole life was about bringing people together, and the hatred that took him from us. But his message stands true today, now more than ever. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. And today, the love that you all bring to Papa Vicha's family and to others who have lost loved ones to this hate and violence, this is what's going to dominate today. This is what's going to dominate in the future. This is what's going to bring us together and keep us together despite what people try to do to tear us apart. Woo! It's been a tough 2 years. And let us all remember, we've all lived through this pandemic. Our children have suffered. Our seniors, in some cases, have suffered in isolation. The fact that we're here today signifies hope. It signifies hope for a better future, of what we can do when we do come together, of what we can do when we drive out that hate with love. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for supporting Vicha's family. Thank you for supporting all of the families of the people whose lives we lost far too soon. And thank you for choosing love. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from San Francisco District 2 Supervisor Catherine Stephanie, whose district includes this neighborhood we're standing in right now, Anza Vista. Supervisor Stephanie has introduced the San Francisco Victims' Rights Initiative to provide support and services to all victims by establishing an Office of Victim and Witness Rights and right to civil counsel for victims of domestic violence. Supervisor Stephanie has been active and a committed ally to the Ratanapakdee family ever since Vicha's passing.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. We are here to commemorate the 1-year anniversary of the murder of Grandpa Vicha, to honor the victims of all Asian hate crimes and violence, and most importantly, to commit to action to do everything in our power to make sure that it stops. Grandpa Vicha's story has haunted me since the first day I saw that video. Knowing that he moved to the United States to be close to his eldest daughter and his grandchildren, 84 years old, still taking his daily hour walks through this beautiful neighborhood, wasn't bothering anyone when he was violently shoved to his death, just breaks my heart. And unfortunately, it was one of the many attacks on our AAPI community in San Francisco last year. I cannot believe the report that came out. It was so shocking to me last week to show that hate crimes against our AAPI community have risen by 500%. It is absolutely unacceptable. And another report, 1 in 5 Asian Americans have experienced a hate incident this past year, whether or not that's verbal harassment, shunning, or physical assault. It absolutely has to stop. And I want to thank Vicha's incredible daughter, Montanus, who's just been so brave and so courageous through all of this. I know we've talked, and I'm very close with my father, and to know what she's been through, to know what her family's been through, and for her to turn this tragedy into action, to work tirelessly to amplify the voices of our AAPI community and raise awareness, to do everything in her power to make sure what happened to her father doesn't happen to anyone else ever again. So I thank her and I honor her. Also, I want to thank her and her family for entrusting me with renaming of this stairway right here, the Vicha Ratanapakdee Way. I'm hoping that in doing so, it will commemorate and memorialize this tragic death as a symbol of a movement towards equality, anti-discrimination, and solidarity with our AAPI community. And I want to be very clear, though, doing things like this is not enough. Just merely coming to these events is not enough. We have to take action. Our actions have to speak as loudly as our words. We must hold accountable those who commit these crimes against our AAPI community. And we must demand that those that have the power to hold people accountable actually do. And not only that, we must do everything we can to support the victims of these callous acts. I was absolutely shocked last week. The news blew my mind, considering what's going on with crime in San Francisco and crimes against our AAPI community. But to see the shaming of a victim, Mr. Onlay, and the twisting of facts in that case, even accusing him as being the aggressor, it shocks the conscience to see anyone engage in victim shaming, especially knowing that facts are being left out. When a victim says, it was the most brutal, terrifying, and humiliating experience of my life, you believe him. You don't come after him. When you know attacks against Asians are up 500%, when we just gathered at a vigil for an Asian woman who was pushed to her death in the New York subway, you do not go after victims. To have any level of government not honestly conveying the facts of a brutal hate crime and blaming the victim is truly reprehensible, and it must be called out, because if not, it places our entire AAPI community at risk. Just this Friday afternoon, a Thai Chinese American was punched in the face and ear near City Hall after picking up his marriage license. I used to be the county clerk, overseeing people in the county clerk's office getting their marriage license, getting married, the happiest day of their life. And this man comes out to be punched in the face and ear. And thank God for the good Samaritans were there that helped the attack stop before it could have gotten worse. But sadly, that wasn't his first time he was victimized. In 2019, on his 25th birthday, he was stabbed in an attempted robbery near Safeway at Church and Market. This has to stop. There's too many attacks on our AAPI community, so we must do everything. It's about action. It's not about words. Again, I want to thank Montanus and her family. Her courage and strength, like I said, is absolutely amazing. I want to thank Mayor Breed for her leadership, for doing everything she can in her power to make this city safe, for putting forth a supplemental to make sure that we have enough police officers and EMTs on our streets, to make sure that there are calls for service that are being answered and that there are preventative measures to make sure these crimes don't happen in the first place. Also, I want to thank today's organizers, Charles Jung, Justin Zhu, and our MC Natasha Kwan and Forrest Liu. We must work together to reverse these acts of crime, these acts of violence against our AAPI community, and I intend to do everything in my power to continue to do so. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Stephanie. Next, we will hear from San Francisco's first Asian American City Attorney, David Chu. City Attorney David Chu was the first Asian also to serve as the president of the San Francisco's Board of Supervisors, as well as the first Asian American to represent Eastern San Francisco in the California State Assembly. As the former chair of the California AAPI Legislative Caucus, last year, City Attorney Chu helped deliver a record state budget investment of $156 million to combat anti-Asian hate. I am honored to call David Chu my boss. Let's please welcome David Chu.
Brothers and sisters, good morning. I want to thank you for gathering today as family, not just as the family of San Francisco, but as a family representing humanity. Last night I had dinner with my father and my 5-year-old son. And my son asked his grandpa, "Grandpa, how old are you?" And my dad said 84. And of course, like all of you, I immediately thought about Grandpa Vicha, who was 84 when he was struck down right here in this corner of our city. And I thought about the fact, as we all have, that Grandpa Vicha could have been my dad, was our grandpa. And I want to say to the Ratanapakdee family, you are our family. We grieve with you, we mourn with you, and we stand with you. We stand with you as San Franciscans. We stand with you from San Francisco to LA, from Chicago to New York, from Philadelphia to Atlanta. America stands with you. 2 years ago, this month, the first anti-Asian violence incidents occurred. There was a Chinese elderly man who was collecting cans in the Bayview, who was beaten. And I want to thank many of you who stood with community there to say, this cannot happen. But what happened? A few days later, there was a Chinese woman who was violently robbed and dragged in the Stockton Tunnel. And so it began. You know about the thousands of incidents that have occurred. There are some who point to individual incidents and say, we don't know if that had to do with race, but we know when you add hundreds upon hundreds, thousands upon thousands of incidents, these are not coincidences. This is racism. Some facts of history. It's been 140 years since this year, when the Chinese Exclusion Act was passed. It's been 80 years from this year, when Executive Order 9066 to intern Japanese Americans was passed, and today we also celebrate Frei Korematsu Day. It's been 40 years since Vincent Chen was bludgeoned to death in Detroit by a baseball bat. And yet here we stand. Our work is not done. So what are we going to do as we come together? Our good mayor quoted Dr. King. I've also been reading a lot about Dr. King, as we do every year this month, who said, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter. Well, I just want to thank so many of you, starting with the activists who've come together today to say, you are telling the world that our community is silent no more. Because we have to speak up. None of you, none of us asked for these challenges that we have in front of us. But we have to meet the moment. Natasha mentioned last year, working with some of my colleagues in the state legislature, we were able to get a record investment in anti-Asian hate. But let me say this, money is not enough. Money will never bring back Grandpa Vicha. We have so much more work to do. As your city attorney, I will promise to continue to fight for justice. But let me end with one final thought, which is this. My profound hope out of the tragedies is that in a few years, in a couple of decades, if I become a grandpa, for all of us, when we become grandparents, my hope is that our grandchildren come to us and say, Grandpa, I read the history books about what happened in 2020 and 2021 and 2022, about the anti-Asian hate. Grandpa, what did you do during that time? And it's my profound hope that we will all be able to say, we met the moment, we stood together, we fought together, we ended anti-Asian violence, and we did it in the name of Grandpa Vicha. Godspeed and thank you.
Thank you so much, City Attorney Chu. Next, we have California State Senator Scott Wiener, who represents San Francisco, Daly City, Broadmoor, Colma, and parts of San Francisco, South San Francisco in the California State Senate. He is the Vice Chair of the California Legislative Jewish Caucus and the immediate past Chair of the California Legislative LGBTQ Caucus.
Thank you, Natasha, and thank you so much to all the organizers. And I really want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you to Vicha's family for, it's so, to experience that deep a tragedy as a family, there's a temptation just to curl up into a ball and to just grieve in silence with your family, and you can never criticize any family for doing that. But you have chosen in this horrible period of grief to be public and to talk about the harm to your family and to talk about this terrible racist attack and to have we hope something good come out of this horrific tragedy in terms of coming to terms with this incredibly harmful hatred against the AAPI community that has been going on since the beginning of this country. When you have an attack like this, there's a tendency to just dismiss it as this was just someone who got attacked and it was bad and there will be consequences and we just need to move on. There's always a temptation to do that. And we need to say absolutely not. This isn't just a random attack. This is part of a context of hate and violence against the AAPI community here in San Francisco and across the country. And we know what that context is. We know that we have political leaders in this country who deliberately and explicitly scapegoat the AAPI community. We all heard it, the Chinese flu, Kung flu. They're still saying it today. After all of this, they are still scapegoating our AAPI communities for COVID-19. And that has consequences. Those words have consequences. And one of those consequences is violence. And we need to also be clear that the violence that we're seeing against our AAPI community, and particularly against our seniors, it's not new. It didn't just start with Donald Trump or with COVID. It's gotten worse. It's been around forever. And as long as I have lived here in San Francisco, and I'm pushing 25 years now, time flies, as long as I have lived here, I have seen the reports of particularly AAPI seniors being attacked in Chinatown. That didn't start a year ago. It didn't start with Donald Trump. We can't just blame Donald Trump for this. That's been here in San Francisco for as long as I can remember, for as long as anyone can remember. We know that California has a deeply ugly history towards our AAPI communities. And our city attorneys has talked about that. And that has consequences, and that is still here with us. We are working very, very hard in the state legislature to support our communities in going through this terrible period. As Natasha mentioned, I have the honor of serving as vice chair of our legislative Jewish caucus. And we worked for the last few years hand in glove with our legislative API caucus, including when David Chu was the chair of that caucus, we miss him, by the way, to secure last year $50 million to fund security grants for community-based organizations, for the Jewish community, for our synagogues and our community centers, for our AAPI community, to make sure that the state of California is being a strong partner in keeping people safe and keeping our community institutions safe. And we're happy to do that work, and we will continue to work hard to expand those investments. But I gotta tell you, it really makes me sad that we have to spend time advocating for budget funding to provide security or metal detectors or security guards for our AAPI community institutions, for our Jewish community institutions. That makes me sad. We shouldn't have to do that. I would love to use that money instead to make sure that families have food on the table, to make sure that our kids have after-school programs, to make sure that our seniors have recreational outlets. We could make such good use of that money, but this hatred has forced us to use that money for basic security. And we'll continue to do that, but I look forward to the day where we don't need to fund those security grants anymore, where we can support the basic needs of our entire community. So let's keep fighting, and thank you so, so much for your advocacy.
Thank you so much, Senator Wiener. Now, the woman who has inspired this movement, the woman who has inspired today's event. It is our privilege to hear from Vicha Ratanapakdee's oldest daughter, Montanas, an incredible woman and community hero in standing against Asian hate. Montana's strength in the face of adversity is truly an inspiration to us all. Please give a warm welcome to Montanas Ratanapakdee.
My father, Vicha, was a kind, family man. He came from Thailand to care my family, who did not deserve to die the way he did. It is hard to believe it has been over 1 year since he passed. I miss him every day. 1 year ago, my father, Vicha, was walking in this neighborhood when he was violently pushed. When I received the phone call from the police, I felt shocked. And I visited my father in the ICU. I prayed for him to wake up, but my father passed away 2 days later. My father, Vicha, was like a friend to me. We would like to talk about everything. We are here today to mourn his passing. I know my father, Vicha, is looking down on us today. It is meaningful to our family to honor my father and to remember the victim of anti-Asian hate. My father was one of the only people in the village who spoke English well. He admired the American value of equality and the equal right. He was a gentleman and a lovely grandpa. He loved to take my son to fun sites in this city. He was a man who led with love, not with hate. This has must change. It is not a temper tantrum. Hate is hate, and we must rise above it. My father, Vicha, would want us all to rise above hate, and he would want us to lead with love. And I know people are scared about the anti-Asian hate in the community, and we must demand action for the justice and all human rights. We need safety for everyone in San Francisco, and we all have a right to stay safe and be able to walk in our neighborhood without fear. We feel so much pain for my father and the other victims of the anti-Asian violence, Asian hate. I know if my father was alive and know about the Justice for Vicha movement and the anti-Asian hate, I know he would tell us to be strong and keep on fighting. I remember my father told me I have to be strong for my young boy, even I'm tired. Many of you are tired to seeing the news about the violence against Asian hate. Please be strong and in memory of my father. And then thank you so much for everyone to being here in the community and the people who have cared so much about the fighting Asian hate. And then thank you so much for the Justin, Forrest, Natasha, Charles Zhang, Liana, Juanita, and Austin Luz, and all the leaders of the AAPI community. Thank you for the Mayor Breed, Supervisor Stephanie, City Attorney David Chu, Senator Wiener, and so many others. I cannot name them all today. And thank you so much for everyone to being here today. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you so much, Montanes, for your continued bravery in this movement. Now we will start the Asian Justice March. We will march to the exact site where Vicha Ratanapakdee was attacked on January 28th of 2021. The route that we will be walking on this march retraces the footsteps of Vicha on his last day. So pause to think about that. And also, please give a moment for the organizers and elected officials to move to the front and follow us down this hill. Thank you so much. All right, Lily, we need you to field marshal. Okay. So, Montanes is still.
It's like that's a classic Obama move right there. We love it. The people love that formula. Absolutely do it. But
justice for? Vicha! Who do we want justice for? Vicha! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! Who do we want it for? Vicha! Who do you want it for? Vicha! When do we want it? Now! Thank you! That's a union call.
Let me just get up to the right now. This is just too much.
Are we still on cam 3?
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! Who do you want it for? Vicha! Who do we want it for? Vicha! Who do we want it for? Vicha! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! Who do we want it for? Vicha! Who do we want it for? Vicha! What do we want it for? Vicha!
Okay.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Justice! What do we want? Now! What do we want it? Now! Who do we want it for? Vicha! Who do we want it for? Vicha! Who do we want it for?
They want to go to what?
Vicha! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Justice!
You doing all right, Kelly?
Now! Who do you want it for? Vicha! Who do you want it for? Vicha! Who do you want it for?
Man,
Vicha!
it's like an obstacle course. He keeps hitting people.
Now!
Like perfect lighting for the march.
This is good. You want me to plan? Okay, let's go.
We all, I think,
wider?
Gregory, say that again. Gregory, say that again. I already got it on file. What you say again. And I'm going to hold your profile. Don't touch me. This is my family friend. From my mom.
I saw my uncle. I saw our grandpa here. He was attacked. He was killed. Grandpa Vicha is gone. And there is nothing that we can do to change that. But today, he lives on. And all of you here today. So thank you. Thank you for being here. We will now hold for a national moment of silence. If you don't mind, please turn and reveal your lotus flower. It should be on the back of your program. Please raise your lotus flower now. The lotus is a symbol of transcendence, rejuvenation, and rebirth.
Yes, you are live. Just hold your shot.
Perfect analogy for the human experience. Even in the dirtiest of waters, the lotus will still be
Can you
beautiful
press
light.
that button? Okay, just press it once.
Now,
I don't
we
know.
will
Just
hold
hold
for
your
a
shot.
time national
You
moment
need
of
to do
silence.
something right now. Okay.
Big button, right?
Yeah.
Still at 1.
Oh shit, this may not be judging at all. Okay, it's not judging at all.
Just about there.
That's the smallest silence moment. Silence. Just hold it. Maybe I guess
Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. Next, we will hear a piece entitled "You Will Not Walk Alone" by renowned cellist, right here. The reason why we're listening to this piece is because a year ago, Grandpa Vicha was alone. Today, we are all here. The piece symbolizes the fact that for now and forevermore, we will all walk together as one. Everyone, please join me in introducing Adele Akiko Kearns and Angela Sun, two renowned cellists.
flower. Go get the flower. Get the flower. Oh, okay.
Thank you for the beautiful song. In remembrance of Grandpa Vicha and all the victims of Asian hate. Just now, at rallies across 6 cities and worldwide on live stream, join us for a moment of silence in remembrance of Grandpa Vicha and the many victims of Asian hate. That silence was our decision. Now let us decide to break the silence. Please turn to the back of your lotus sign and follow along for a reading of We Will Not Be Silenced. Since we first set foot on American soil, Asian Americans have been told a lot of things. We've been told that this country is equal. We've been told that we should be grateful. We've been told that we're the model minority. We've been told that we're not a minority at all. We've been told that the racism we experience isn't real, that our people aren't targeted, that our communities aren't underserved, that our lack of representation and agency in the country and corporations we help build is more than what we deserve. This narrative, this lie, has gone on for generations. And with the strength our ancestors gave us, we have taken it in stride. We have continued living. We have continued building. We have continued dreaming of a day when those who define us by their own misguided narrative will see us for who and what we truly are.
Is that okay?
Integral, equal Americans. We have been excluded. We have been ignored.
Different anger.
We have been silenced. The silence ends here.
Okay, got it, bro. Got it.
Because the truth is not what we have been told. The truth is that our communities are facing poverty, evictions, widespread lack of language access, and a lack of accessible health care. The truth is that Asian elders and women are afraid to walk alone at night. The truth is that we have seen violence against the Asian American community. But it is not the first time we have experienced the bitter taste of prejudice. Since we have been in this country, we have faced racism in immigration, in the courts, in our streets, in our universities, in our jobs, and in the media. Now we are sharing our stories and speaking our truths.
Let me go from the
And
hill.
those truths do not come with requests. They come with demands for safety, for equality, for equity, for justice, for a seat at the table we help build, and we will not be silenced. We call on Asian Americans and all people of conscience to stand up, speak out, and demand to be heard. We will not be silenced about the racism we face. We will not be silenced about the hate crimes committed against us. We will not be silenced as the model minority while our communities live in poverty. We will not be silenced and whitewashed in the media. We will not be silenced and typecast in the entertainment industry. We will not be silenced in the corporations built on our backs. We will not be silenced while our people are scapegoated for political gain. We will not be silenced in the fight for immigration reform. We will not be silenced in the record of our nation's history. We will not be silenced in the country we call home. We will speak. We will march. And we will fight until our love for this nation is shown back in kind. Today, we break the silence. Today, we will be heard. Justice for Vicha. Justice for Vincent. Justice for all the victims of Asian hate. Thank you. Justice for Vicha. 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 Thank you so much. That's the end of the Moment of Silence program. Now we'll walk and march to a lunch reception with the family for memorial program, more speaking. So please join us now. We're going to march and continue the program. Thank you. Oh, the lunch is at Paena in Japantown. It's Paena Restaurant, P-A-I-N-A. It's about a 18 to 20-minute walk or a 5-minute drive. So feel free to come along, and we'll be having more speakers and special memorial program with the family. Thank you.
I am there. I'm planning.
Do you guys still want me to just get wide?
Hold on, come on.
How's the exposure? I'm really high. Okay, let me lower it. Okay, how about that?
I feel like the attacks on AAPI community since the COVID era has been exasperated because of President
Okay, let me go back out.
Trump. But because of those attacks, it brought us back to the beginning of the history in America. So we are now so much aware of all the violence that's been perpetrated
Emily, took to me.
since the beginning of America. So I would say that it has galvanized the AAPI community in America to come together to support each other, different organizations, like the organization that started this, SWAA, the stop, SWAA stands with Asian Americans, and also TAP, the Asian American Foundation, which is a great organization now. That's like the Asian American NAACP. So because of this, today, we have galvanized the fight for it.
Okay. I mean, I think everyone's talking, but...
Oh, okay, nice. It's funny, like at one rally, it was and then afterwards, she's like, embarrassed that I said I was proud to be white. I totally get it. Yeah.
Well, you're on campaign? Oh, I see a sign.
Yeah, everyone. About an hour, I guess.
Are you on the drummer? Should I look for the drummer? Okay. Is he a close-up? I think it was super wide.
I didn't make that plug yet. Mentally. Let's go check it out. Oh, I'd like to get one of you guys to do something. You gotta tell us that? I feel like that's heavy. It's okay, I want some money.
I would assume, yeah.
You think so? I think so. Yeah, let's say
I don't mind a little late, but it's just...
Is it signed to...
schedule, like,
Sign
all
start?
the other ones I
Or are you talking about...
So I got mine like got your first one too. Yeah. I got mine.
Thank you for joining us for the rally and the march on a very special day for the Asian American community, certainly for San Francisco, to remember Grandpa Vicha. We're so grateful that Malthanis and her family has taken the initiative to make sure that her father's life is meant for the community and that his life is remembered as someone who championed for change. First off, we like to share a very special video presentation to have you get to know the life of Vicha Ratanapakdee, to better know him and his family and how the movement was started. Natasha and the team worked very hard. Jade and the Chinatown Volunteer Coalition worked very hard on this remembrance presentation. So please enjoy.
Till you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulder. Raise me up to more than I can be.
You're broken down and tired of living life on the merry-go-round, and you can't find a fighter. I see it in you, so we can walk it out. Mountain, we can walk it out. And mountain. And The silence is quiet, and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe. And I know you feel like dying, but I promise we would take the world to its feet. Ooh, about death, bring it to its feet. Ooh, about death. And I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again.
Thank you so much for being here and sharing this moment and getting to the life of Grandpa Vicha and his family. Thank you to Natasha and the team for putting together such a great remembrance. Let's give it up to Malthanis and her family. Thank you, Malthanis. And next up, I'd like to invite Malthanis herself for a couple words from her heart.
Hi everyone. Thank you for everyone here today. So good afternoon, all honored guests today. I would like to thank you for all of you for supporting our Asian community. Today is one of our successful events to move on to live up equality for all Asian Americans. We don't want to see any more Asian Americans to get attacked or killed. When we are targeted, we cannot keep quiet. We must raise our voice. Nowadays, as you see, there are more cases almost daily. We have to be united and stand up for each other. And now I know we have not just only Asian, but all other allies who are supporting us. I'm looking forward to seeing our nice and peaceful society. Please enjoy your lunch, and thank you very much for being here today. Thank you for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Malthanis. Let's give it up one more time for Malthanis. Thank you, thank you. Next up, I'd like to invite, we call him Captain America, Captain Asian America, Charles Jung. He's brought us together in so many ways, and he's also the voice of reason and the voice of keeping us on track. So please come on up. He's one of the co-organizers of this event. Charles.
My friend Kelly told me that the best speeches are the ones that are unplanned and unwritten, so this is going to be the best speech, Kelly. We gathered before the rally started, just the organizers, and we had a moment of prayer and gratitude really towards Monthanas and her family, because we've been working with a lot of victims of anti-Asian violence and hate, and most are afraid, and because to be in the spotlight places you in a vulnerable position. So really what Monthanas is giving to us is a gift of her story. And it's so important for the community because these moments don't come along but once in a generation. Vincent Chin in 1982, the LA riots, Stop Asian Hate. And we have to well use these moments, as Monthanas likes to say. I was asked to talk a little bit about the origin story of this group of activists that inspires me so much. And I have to give a special shout out to Natasha Kwan. so Natasha first asked me to meet Month on Us and to help her 2 months ago to write a letter to the San Francisco, it's not going to be political, San Francisco District Attorney to demand better communication with victims of anti-Asian violence, to increase language access, and to identify what the DA's office is doing to protect everybody in this city, including Asian Americans. And I can tell you, when she first invited herself to a happy hour with my friend, I said, I didn't say this to her, but I thought, who are you? And why are you here? But she connected us to a group of so many organizers in this room. Forrest and Mark and Hudson and Jonathan and Amy. Too many people to name who are really the next generation of leaders for the Asian American movement. And we need to give each one of these people a big round of applause, because they are the people who are making it happen for our community today. And we met with the district attorney twice. I won't tell you what happened in those meetings, but I remember the Zoom calls that we would have beforehand, just to prep everyone to make sure they're on the same page. You know, I don't remember much of what I advised, except I said, don't fucking cross-examine this guy. You know, there's no press here, no CNN moments, no Fox News moments. And I can tell you, feeling that frustration when Drew is cross-examining our district attorney. And I'm like, come on, man, what did we just talk about? But this is the real passion. And I'll just share one more anecdote, which is that 2 weeks ago, before Christmas, I remember going to a holiday party, a Christmas party my wife took me to. And in the middle of it, this was on a Sunday, retreated to the basement, used their Wi-Fi, jumped on a Zoom call with Forrest and Natasha and Justin. And we said, you know, what can we do to elevate this moment where in your news feeds, you as Asian Americans primarily might see the issue of anti-Asian hate alive, but that's not what America sees. America does not see this moment anymore. And so what we wanted to do was elevate this moment to remind Asian America, but also to remind the rest of America, that this issue of anti-Asian violence and anti-Asian bias persists even to this day. And we really want to thank Month on Us for letting us tell her story. Thank you, Month on Us. And so when we raised this issue, let's make it nationwide, I thought, that's great, but I don't want to do it. So, and so we had a lot of reservations, but 200 hours of Zoom calls and organizing. Today, in New York City, in Chicago, in Atlanta, in Philadelphia, in Los Angeles, in San Francisco, we united in a moment of silence to honor the victims of anti-Asian hate. And that's what's possible when we unite our voices and stay together, because today we break the silence. Thank you.
Break the silence, everybody. Woo! Thank you, Charles. Thank you for bringing us together. And as Charles is talking about the origins of this movement that's happening here with Asian Americans for civil rights, I'm very honored to invite my next guest, Reverend Arnold Thomas. He's the Townsend. He's the vice president of an NAACP SF, and I'd love to have him share a couple words for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I can still get up there. I'm pretty impressed with that. As a matter of fact, we have a thing like that at church, and recently, well, before the pandemic, I made the mistake of hopping off, and not sometimes I forget I'm almost 80 years old, but thank God. Yeah, I look good, and it's got to be the Lord, because any of you who've known me for a while No, it's certainly not because I took care of myself. I got to this town in the summer of love, 67. Just got out of the Army. And that really brings me to the first point I wanted to make when in regards to hate, that I was drafted into the Army. Most of you are too young to know anything about that. But you used to get a letter in the mail, men did, and it said, greetings from your Uncle Sam, and your whole life was changed. It was disrupted, and you were gone for 2 years in the Army, or you were gone to 5 years in prison, your choice. I sometimes think I made the wrong choice because it was during the height of Vietnam. I didn't go to Vietnam, I went to Korea. Now, you can look at me and tell, and born in 1943, and tell that I knew something about hate before I went into the Army at 22 years old. But what I learned in the Army is that hatred for others is one of America's, or this country rather, I shouldn't use the term America, there are a lot of Americans. There are Central Americans, the South Americans, and there are other North Americans in Canada, and they all have a right to use the term America. But the U.S., one of its greatest exports is hate. When I got to Korea and saw how people in Korea were treated by the U.S. military, it was amazing. We create a red light district everywhere the soldiers go, and terrible things when you talk about sex trafficking, you haven't seen it till you've been around a military post overseas somewhere. And it not only includes women, but it includes girls and boys, young children. And so, and it was really disgusting to me because I'm black. I knew what that meant, the treatment, the names. They not only called people, but they expected me to call them that. And if I did not, something was wrong. And let me tell you something. You've got to be ever watchful to not succumb to it. And that's one of the messages that's going out in our community, and telling folk not to fall for the okie doke, not to fall for the fact that this is easy, because many of the crimes that you see committed are crimes of opportunity. The only hate comes in because of how people look. They figure they're an easy mark. They're elderly, they're Asian, they can get away with it. Asians don't call the police. Y'all know the stereotypes better than I do. And so because of that, it makes people pray. But I want to just tell you a couple of things. Because we're going to solve this, we have to. But when we do, when things start to change, we've got to keep on fighting, because it'll come back. And if it doesn't come back on Asians, it'll come back on someone else. I know, because we've been victims of it since the country was founded. In fact, it may come as a shock to you, because most people don't believe it. If you look at FBI statistics, the person most likely to have a hate crime perpetrated against them in this country, even today, with all that we see in the news, is an African American. And you would never know that by the media. And the media in this town, you would only know that the only hate crimes perpetrated against Asians are by black folk. We can't participate in the lie. Let's start highlighting the real truth of what is going on. Every day, I told you I've been here since 67, that's like 54 years or so. And every day in this city, there are thousands of interactions that go on between African Americans and Asians. Yes, some of them are terrible, some of them are criminal, some of them are hateful, but they are also, the vast majority falls into categories of business and commerce. They fall in the category of neighbor and friend. They fall in the category of schoolmates, churchmates, and yes, they fall in the category of romance. And those far outnumber the crimes of hate by the thousands. Let's start highlighting. Let's start highlighting in our communities the things that make us godly rather than things that make us ungodly. Finally, let me say this to you. Let me be real unpopular for a minute. I did not support Chesa Boudin. Not because I had anything against him. In fact, I served on a National Hard Times Conference board with his mother, the woman who raised it. It was a national board during the difficult times around the bicentennial. But I knew his opponent, and she was a friend of mine, and so I supported Susie Loftus. But let me tell you something. However you feel about Chesa Boudin, remember this. We have been incarcerating and imprisoning people since the founding of this nation. There are more people in prison today serving longer sentences than in any time in the history of this country, and it ain't working. It has never worked. Crime is ever on the increase. We've got to try something different. I know you don't like to hear that. We've got to find a way to do it better than we've ever done it. Doesn't mean much to you if you're the victim, I understand. But we've got to try to find something that solves the problem once and for all, and to make this a place where people want to live, where people have a right to live and to achieve and advance. And this does not happen in every other nation on the planet. Crime does not rival what it is in this country, and you ought to be able to figure out why. The unfairness, I know that's not popular to say. It's much easier to get applause when you come in and say, lock them up. And that is our problem. The reality is that too many of us we care more about punishing folk than we do about fixing folk. Let's change the narrative. Let's change us. Let's change our city. God bless you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Reverend Arnold Townsend. He's a long-term resident of the Fillmore District, and historically Fillmore and Japantown are very close in voting together, working together, and he shares some stories about how there's a lot more love between our community than there is hate, and let's not have the hate divide us, and we need to be together to make sure that we can all live in a place where we belong and are safe. Next up, I want to bring up a very special guest. For Asian Americans, I think we've been missing a foundation really to support us. And one of the changes that came out of the movement of last year was the Asian American Foundation. And I'd like to invite the CEO, Norman Chen, to come and tell us about the Asian American Foundation and himself.
Thanks everybody for having me here today. It's an honor to be here with you and with Kun Vicha's family. My name is Norman Chen. I'm the CEO of the Asian American Foundation, also known as TAF. We're brought today together in remembrance of one of our community members, Kun Vicha Ratanapakdee, who we lost a year ago today. Vicha was a father, a grandfather, and a beloved friend, and the lasting impression his tragic attack left on all of us has not faded one bit. Our communities continue to be under attack, and news cycles rarely capture the full breadth of the harm being inflicted upon our collective consciousness. But on days like this, when our communities come together and take action, we should be reminded of our strength and our resilience. We are strongest when our communities come together, which is one of the guiding lights for our work at the Asian American Foundation. TAF was founded in the spring of 2021 to help accelerate belonging and prosperity for the Asian American community, and we're seeking to do that by building the infrastructure needed to do better to protect, support, and celebrate our community. This mission has never been so important, particularly in our efforts to combat anti-Asian American hate and to keep our communities safe. We launched our anti-hate national network last year to build more connectivity between the national organizations fighting to stop AAPI hate and the incredible local organizations working on the ground where hate is happening. As part of our anti-hate network, we've established an AAPI Action Center here in the Bay Area, also in Chicago and New York City, to ensure best practices for tracking, preventing, and responding to hate in a way that's scaled and shared nationwide. Our Action Center in the Bay Area is with Asian Health Services in Oakland. We're incredibly proud to be working with them to build on their 40-plus years of service in the community. It's through partnerships with powerful organizations like AHS that we want to help engage in rapid response to incidents of hate and violence as they occur, jumping in to support the families and community members who are affected and engaging with local officials as needed. We also want to create long-term solutions for stemming the tidal wave of hate by incubating the services and supports that will prevent hate in the future. For too long, AAPIs have confronted discrimination, prejudice, and violence. In fact, today we commemorate the birthday of Fred Korematsu, the Japanese-American civil rights activist who took a defiant stand against Japanese internment. Anti-AAPI hate is an ancient history. It's around us all the time, but all of us have the power to respond. We must be intentional and persistent about how we show up in not only the fight against hate, but in the fight for creating a greater sense of belonging and prosperity. TAF looks forward to working with you to continuing to stand together in that fight. Thank you all for the contributions you're making to our communities, and thank you for including me today to honor Kun Vicha's life.
Thank you so much to Norman and Taft for providing the foundation for the Asian American communities and giving us hope that we can come together and fight hate and create belonging. Next up, I want to invite a local celebrity, I would say, and also a long-time activist, Carl Chan. He is the president of the Oakland Chinatown Chamber of Commerce and also a board member of the Asian Health Services, which is part of the Action Network that TAF has set up. Please welcome Carl Chan.
Thank you. Before I get started, I want to say, Grandpa Vicha, Vicha's family and friends, we love you. And also for those in support of Vicha's family and those who are in support of all this AAPI hate, doing all your work, I also want to say thank you. My name is Carl Chan, and I'm so excited, of course, to see Norman, the TAF. And they have done quite a bit of good work and supporting those, especially like Asian Health Services, which I also serve as a former chair and also current board member. So I wear many hats. And for those organizations you mentioned, including like AAPI, Asian Health Services, Oakland China Chamber of Commerce, and also with the many organizations, Neighborhood Crime Prevention Council, it's all volunteer work, just like many of you. And I want to say also special thanks to those doing all this patrol volunteer work in San Francisco, like Yana here. And we also have the original group in Oakland to patrol since the beginning of last year in 2021, the Blue Angels. And I do see Compassion Oakland's right here. Asian with attitude. And many of you have done so many things, in helping, our community. Now, don't worry, I have only one page. The font size is 20, okay, so it's okay. So it won't be that long. I try not to. But also, I want to talk about, when I'm hearing, Mr. Townsend, I want to talk about racism. And many people are trying to say that I understand racism. What I would say, you truly don't really know racism unless you are the receiving end. Right. And who knows best? Our black community, and which is so true. And I'm so thankful that so blessed, when I was in high school, the one person really influenced me the most was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I remember I was in class, and I came from Hong Kong. So you never really watch any movie in class. So they said, they have a movie that's watch. And turned out to be, I Have a Dream. And that really changed my life, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now. Now, I know that Mr. Townsend did talk about we also suffer a lot in our community. If you could remember, some years ago, Chinatown, if you were Chinese, you could not cross Broadway. If you did, guess what happened? I know Mr. Townsend will tell you. Just like their own community, you got beaten up or you'll be lynched. And I'm not kidding. So that's happening, but we need to change that. I know that some of you have been reading and seeing the list of people got killed because of the AAPI hate. And I'll tell you, my name could also be end up there. But I got lucky because I always got attacked. But I'm lucky that I've survived that attack. And it happened, early, end of April last year. And interesting enough, people said, why are you doing this? Well, I've been doing this for a long time. And some of you may still remember there are a couple of, high-profile murder cases taking place everywhere, but including Oakland. One of them is a father and son. They came in shopping in Oakland, downtown, and there was a little argument. So, the father and said, what happened? Why are you beating up my son? And so, unfortunately, he also got punched in the head and knocked down on the ground in front of Fox Theater, and he died. And a few months later, actually shortly after, in the same year, another gentleman came and to be interviewed at Google. And just one day before, he got robbed in downtown Oakland. He got shot and killed. And when all this happening, the families got hurt, and they asked me to, I stepped in and helped. And I was the one helping to deliver. If the DA office, you understand, or attorneys, I was helping to deliver what they call the victims' impact statements. So when that happened, I did it on behalf of those two families that lost, their loved ones. And the only good thing I could say was that it did bring us all together, the community. But that was very, very, very tough. And when I say tough, November was the most challenging month for me. Why? On November 4th, it was actually me, myself, delivering my own victims' impact statement. There are many people there in support of me. But surprisingly, there are many more people. They were supporting the attacker who attacked me. And I was a little surprised. But I guess this is what we are seeing in our community, in this country. And it's not the worst. In November, on November 6th, remember the little Jasper and who was in the car with the family on the freeway, driving on southbound 880. And a stray bullet hit and killed this little baby. And he was only 23 months old. So I was able to, connect it with the family. And I still remember on the day of November 8th, 2 days later, we were helping the father who was in China, who had never seen this little baby Jasper, even though the day when he was born. So on that day, he was able to fly in to SFO. And we were so lucky to get the help from the Oakland Police Department and the Alameda County Sheriff, the San Francisco Police, and also the Immigration Office. So we got him out quickly and, uniting with the family. And he himself never had a chance holding his own baby. And at the night, I spent most of the time with the family and talking about the logistics, talking about the funeral, talking about many, many things. And also one of the things that we were doing was to set up the GoFundMe. So when it was done and finished, I got home around 10 o'clock. So my wife was waiting for me and had dinner ready for me because it was my birthday. And I had the best dinner. It was a hot dinner, just like the good food you have like today, okay? And so I think it's the most memorable of my birthday. So I told my wife, I'm very fortunate because I got to celebrate many of my birthdays. But Jasper, could get to see his second birthday. It has been so tough, especially knowing that, this father never had a chance holding his own baby. And the time that we need to show him little Jaspers is seeing the dead body. And that's been quite tough. So I think one thing, we need to say and understand, the AAPI community, and there are many, many victims, like Vicha, and all the names go on, and hasn't been stopping ever since. And Mr. Townsend did mention, it did not happen yesterday or last year. It has been going on for many, many, many years. And when people are facing one pandemic, the AAPI community were facing the dual pandemic. And this attack hurting our community is the worst pandemic ever. Sorry, it's allergy season. But it's also season for love, not hate. And people said, what can we do? We can do a lot of things. And I know Justin asked me, what is the toughest things about doing all this work? I think when you are seeing me, I talk pretty tough outside. At the press conferences, I talk tough. But the only problem is, when I got home late at night by myself, I couldn't help many times crying. I couldn't help myself. And because sometimes, you feel like, you're doing it alone. But today, you look at the rally, I know that I am not alone. But people said, want to do something. What do? We must do something to change it, okay? It takes all of us together, the political will, and we must do something. But it's not going to be you or me, it's going to be we. Now, I know Mr. Townsend did talk about many dark chapters in the history of this country. But guess what? Starting today and tomorrow, we'll start writing the new chapter of the history, and we can change it. And by working together, and we need to continue. Remember, it's not about you or me, it's us. And again, when we're doing this together, it's going to be many, many. I know that we're focusing so many times on the problems. Let's talk more about the solutions. I know you all know how to do this. And there are short-term and long-term solutions. And you know what? I know politicians can always say, I can do this. But it's not about talking, including all of us. It's about delivering. So when we are talking about solutions, let's talk about how to implement all these solutions together. And again, I'm so thankful, in addition to all of us, the media. Do you know that all this time, all this thing happening, and when we are talking about how many incidents happening, do you know that's only representing maybe 10 to 15% that you know about? What about the other 80, 90%, the incidents still happening every single day? We need to voice out. And I'm so glad that today the rally and all of you came together, and the media is actually giving us the voice. And before, I remember when all this happening, Mr. Townsend and the NAACP, we have all experience. Do they talk about things that you are concerned with? Not always. But are we talking about it now? They have to now, because all of us together. I also want you to know that for us to make all these changes, it cannot only coming out from the AAPI community. We all have to work together. The Black community, Asian community, Jewish community, Hispanic, all of us, we have to work together to make this change. Okay, so in closing, I really need to say thank you to all of you. Remember, we cannot just talk about it, but let's move on with actions. There are many, many people, I know I cannot name all of you, but a few people have to say, I want to say thank you to Justin, Charles, Natisha, Forrest, Lily, and many, many of you are the organizers. So let's do it. Let's change the dark chapter and rewrite a new chapter. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Woo. Light will prevail, and the reason we had the lotus as symbol is because it grows in the mud, in this dirt, comes out of this flower with such beauty and purity, and that's what we can grow, even out of darkness, and even out of the dirt. Thank you, Carl, for sharing your stories of helping with so many families and sticking through for all these years and not giving up. Even when he was the only person, he would not give up, and now we are not alone. We're together, we're strong, we're gonna beat hate, we're gonna do it together, yes. And speaking of action, my next speaker I'd like to invite is from the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, Vikram Iyer. He's going to talk about some of the work he's doing and the firm is doing in the government.
First of all, I do want to thank the family again of Grandpa V for allowing us to honor this moment. Really appreciate you letting us be here today. I know maybe just the way I look, it may not seem that I obviously know anything about hate, but my name is Vikram Iyer, and actually the last name Iyer in South Asia was a source of prosecution for my family. They were denied jobs and education on that last name alone, and like we celebrate a grandfather today, my own grandfather's brother during World War II was a subject of an internment camp of its own right and was locked up as a prisoner of war. Obviously, my parents, who immigrated to this country from India, sought refuge and saw a new chapter in life, and it has been incredible. But that story of grandfathers, it's not too uncommon. It's not just a Vincent, it's not just a Vicha, it's not just my grandfather. It's the story in this country of the Chinese Exclusion Act. It's the story of World War II Japanese internment. It's the story just a couple of years ago of a president of these United States standing up a Muslim ban in this country. These stories, time and time again, define the American journey, and yet the only thing that stops it is the organizing that we see on full display today. So to every single organizer that has made this moment possible, let's hear it one more time for them. Let's give them a round of applause. As Johnson mentioned, I work for the National ACLU. It's a civil rights organization. And of late, everything that we've been seeing, everything that this room has been organized around has really inspired us and moved us to action. In the last 2 years alone, we've worked with Congress to give the U.S. Department of Justice new powers to investigate hate crimes federally. We've been combating misinformation against the Chinese American and East Asian communities online, specifically during the COVID-19 pandemic. We've been working across the country to make sure that tenants' rights and renters' rights are codified and strengthened for Asian Americans up and down the Bay Area and throughout the country. And we've been working with the Biden administration to create a pathway to citizenship for too many undocumented members in this country that continue to get persecuted from basic social services. We're proud of that work. But the one thing that I wanted to talk to each of you about today is that sometimes it does feel like we're forced to choose between how we make the situation better. You just spoke to solutions, that we need action. But sometimes in this town, we're told that we can only stand for action of the Asian American community and people like Grandpa Vicha, or we can stand for principles of criminal justice reform and wanting fewer black and brown people in jail. Why are those at odds? Those do not need to be at odds. We choose both. This room chooses both. We can have a system that is both safe for San Francisco and free of racist elements of our criminal justice system. We can have a system where we invest in mental health, in job training services, in good quality pay, in childcare and housing, and in a world in which my auntie and uncle can walk to school safely or to the merchant safely. We can have a system in which we protect Chinese American, Indian American, Korean American workers, give them the right pay and the right dignity of work, and protect the small businesses, the grocery stores, the merchants, the corner stores that are dying and clawing to crawl their way back up from a pandemic. We can have both, but all too often we are forced to choose between a false choice. But today, we say no. Today we say no because if we organize together, if we create the type of diversity of representation in public office together that looks like this room, if we create allyship together, where we do not just stick our necks out the next time a Thai American community and family member faces crime and violence, but the next time that a Sikh American family faces violence, and the next time a Jewish American community faces violence, all of us stand up together. This room stands together. That's how we can get both. And that sense of organizing, that sense of trust, that's what we have to do. There will be a lot of people that all too often will give us a list of names. They will tell us about Michelle Go. They will tell us about your grandfather. Maybe someday they'll tell stories about my own grandfather's brother. But those stories will only go in vain until we organize, until we do more of this, and until we actually demand one common thing, that if we build trust in each other, if there is a police department that trusts the DA's office, that trusts the mayor's office, and this community can trust and look out for each other, that's how we get that shiny vision on the hill. That's how we become the San Francisco we are. We are not a town of false choices. California is not a town of false choices. There are not two San Franciscos. There are not two Asian communities. There are not two versions of how we get this done. There is only one common sense, and that is our dignity and our decency, and we can do that if we continue to organize today. Thank you.
Thank you, Bikram and the ACLU, for sharing how they've been working to further our rights. And it is not an either or. We can do both. And we are changing the narrative through our organizing. So now, last but not least for today, there's going to be more events. I want to invite Natasha, one of the co-super heroes of this event, to share some last words.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for making it to the end. I'm just going to say some really quick thank yous. This national event took so much help and work from so many people. Of course, the very first thank you goes to Montanas, Eric, your family, for your bravery to speak up and let us tell your story, number one. The lead event organizers, so Charles Jung, like we said, he's our captain. He ran and coordinated this national event. This is a huge, massive effort. He said 200 hours of Zoom calls. So a huge thank you to Charles. And thank you to his family for lending us the 200 hours of time, because I know as a mom, that's a lot. Okay, and Justin, wow, your efforts for marketing and organizing the national event, the media, all of that, thank you so much. You've really gone above and beyond at this event, also putting together this lunch. Forrest, without you, the San Francisco event would have fallen apart. You helped us with all the permits and coordinating with the elected officials. We're so grateful. Thank you so much, Forrest, for really being there for the Ratanapakdee family since the very beginning of this movement. So thank you, Forrest. And Lily, who came in, really was a huge pinch hitter at the last minute with the stage and the sound. She helped us get neighborhood arts to help us with the technical support, the sound and stage. They've been serving the cultural community since 1967. Thank you to them and Lily also, and your amazing volunteer team, Lily. Thank you so, so much. And just a few more. Okay, so we have Stand With Asians. They helped us significantly with marketing. Mark, where are you? Mark? Okay, well, Mark, right there. Thank you so much. We wanted to make sure Stand With Asians. They've been a huge partner. The Asian American Foundation, Asians Are Strong, all of the amazing partners for this event. We had amazing volunteers from Chinatown Volunteer Coalition as well as Dear Community. The volunteers at the front door when you came in, that was Amy Lee, Jade Tu, Tam, your amazing crew, and Juliet. Thank you so, so much. And our cellists, I don't believe they're here anymore, but Adela Kiko Kearns and Angela Sun. And lastly, all of our amazing speakers, Mayor Breed, City Attorney Chu, Senator Wiener, Supervisor Stephanie, Norman Chen, Carl Chan, Reverend Townsend, and all of the organizers. Thank you so, so much. Huge thank you to everyone. And all of you for attending. Thank you.
Thank you to Vikram as well. All right, thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the lunch here, and what a beautiful day it is. So please enjoy, get to know everybody. We'll be doing this more and more often. Let's keep the organizing going. Thank you.